What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 513 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, September 27, 2023. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Let's get right into it. Mike does it from YouTube. Their first question was, if The Rock had a mixed tag team match with his daughter, Ava Raine, Simone Johnson, whatever, who that are father and daughter would you make their opponents? You know, I was trying to think of like father-daughter combos currently in wrestling, because there are a lot of second-generation talents. Charlotte Flair, Natalya, Tessa Blanchard, people like that. No one that I could think of that like is in their prime right now, as far as like the Ric Flairs or the Tully Blanchards and fucking, who did they just say? Natalya. I mean, her dad is dead, obviously. It would probably have to be Rick. And even if Rick wasn't, you know, if he was still active, he would have to be in his prime, not a current matchup. But if it was like, and even Ava Raine is not ready for any sort of actual match. She's been having matches on NXT TV for the better part of the year. None of them have been very good. None of them have been very long. So they would have to be very protected. But if it was like a prime Ric Flair, or like Ric Flair even 15, 20 years ago, and current Charlotte versus either current Rock or Rock of 10, 15, 20 years ago, and Ava Raine of today, you'd have to mix up the generations a little bit, but that could work. Like The Rock and, I don't know, Jim Neidhart and Natalya doesn't really have the appeal on paper. Even Tully and Tessa, problematic or not, even that match on paper doesn't sound overly appealing, because Ava Raine just isn't a great worker currently, and I don't know how great she'll become in the future. She's been doing this for a while, so I'm not exactly sure. But probably Charlotte and Rick versus Rock and Ava if I had to make a choice. There probably is a handful of other options to choose from as far as second generation, third generation female talent that I'm not thinking of, that I just can't think of off the top of my head right now. But that would be my answer. His second question, who from the WWE releases do you think will become a bigger star and potentially return to WWE in the future? Honestly, when I look at all the current releases from WWE last week, I think the person, you could say Dolph. I think with the highest chance of coming back at some point is Matt Riddle. I could see Riddle, or rather Ziggler, coming back for like a Rumble return, you know, for a short run, or to be a producer. I could see Riddle coming back as like a full-time talent, provided, and this is a big if, I sound like fucking the guy from Hercules, the animation, if is good, only if he gets his life back on track. We talked about Riddle here a couple weeks ago, like, should WWE cut ties with him? I don't know if I said 100% yes, because I feel like it was something that could be fixed, but at the same time, I would not be shocked if they did let him go, and they did, and I'm disappointed that it came to this, that he even got himself in that position, but it had to happen given the circumstances. You can't let all this talent go and then not fucking Matt Riddle, who was given all the chances in the world and fucked up every single one of them. I could see Riddle, if he gets his life back on track at some point, and again, that's an if, that's not a when, I could see him back at some point down the road. It could be a year or two, it could be 5 years. I think Riddle has the highest chance of coming back, because he's still young enough in his career where he has that chance to kind of go away and come back. Ziggler is not going to, Ziggler taking the Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre route of going out, becoming a bigger star outside of WWE and coming back, I feel like that window's closed. For Ziggler, that could have happened 5, maybe 7 years ago. In 2023, if he is in 40, he's closing in on 40. He has to be close to 40 at this point. I mean, Jericho's 52, Sting's fucking 60, I get it. But I feel like Ziggler's stock has already peaked at a certain point in WWE. If he goes elsewhere, I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. That's not to say I don't completely not care about Dolph Ziggler. I don't want to see him do well. I want to see everyone who got released do well. But there's no one, honestly, from that crop, aside from maybe Riddle, who was released for reasons kind of related to why the others were released. His was kind of a separate thing. I feel like a lot of those people were not exactly missed opportunities. Riddick Moss had been there for a very long time, and I just never really saw him getting beyond a certain level. I didn't think he was overly great. They could have done more with Emma, but Emma was never going to be what she could have been like 10 years ago as far as a featured face in that division. She was only really going to be around for enhancement stuff. Top Dollar was never going to be a top star. Aaliyah is just not that good. Rick Boogs, I like, and he's charismatic. You could have found a role for him. They just didn't. I feel like most of the people they let go, if not all of them, really had already hit a certain point where they were not going to be doing more than what they were doing on TV. It's not like a couple of years ago when they were letting people go before they really had a chance to get going. Keith Lee, Karrion Kross at that point, like people they did not even give a chance to. Even Top Dollar the first time I had said, it was dumb they were letting Hit Row go before they could really even get going. And, this time they gave him the chance to get over. Didn't really work on TV, and they let him go. Not the rest of Hit Row, which is weird. But there's really no one from that batch, unless I'm forgetting someone. Ali is very talented. Ali can go out and have a banger indie run in like Impact, maybe AEW, Ring of Honor, MLW would be cool. I don't see him coming back and becoming a bigger star. He would probably be at the same level he was before, and I'm not even really sure if he would want to come back. It sounds like that was not the best fit for him, and he had heat for stuff that was just for like dumb reasons. And not anything that was his fault, like the Riddle stuff. Like stuff that creatively they wanted him to do that he wouldn't want to do because it was dumb, and I don't blame him for it. I don't see Ali coming back and being like this, bigger star. And a lot of people have left and come back after having success elsewhere and aren't bigger stars. And they're still at the exact same level they were at previously. Shelton Benjamin being one of them. He got released now twice by WWE. Before he got released this time, he was even a level below where he was previously 10 years ago. 10 years ago, he was in the mid-card. Letting him go at that point was stupid. This time, he was never even on the show. He could have been, a part of the Hurt Business reunion had they done that. They didn't, and that was it for him. When that fell through, that was it for Shelton Benjamin in WWE, because he's already 40-something years old anyway. A lot of these people I just don't see coming back and becoming bigger stars. Like John Morrison went out, was a world champion in Lucha Underground, Impact, came back, and again, the exact same spot that he was in before, which wasn't entirely a bad thing, but then he was jobbed out a lot, and then that was it, and they didn't really see a role for him after that, so I wouldn't bet on these people coming back and becoming bigger stars. I feel like that's the exception, the Codys and the Drews and people like that. It's possible. I could see it happening with Riddle, but the Riddle thing was not a case of like he left on his own, or they let him go because he was underutilized or anything. He had a great run. He was his own worst enemy. So I guess we'll find out in due time. I could see Dolph coming back for like a return, either for a short run or to be a producer or a Rumble return. That I don't think is anywhere really out of the question. I'm sure he left on good. I mean, they let him go. His contract didn't expire. I'm not even sure if he would want to come back, but he was there for so long. I'm sure he calls it home. They would bring him back at some point. I can hear here to show the world in a Royal Rumble one of these years. I would not be surprised. His third question, could the Orange Cassidy gimmick as we see it work in WWE on the main roster? That's a great question. I am going to say no. I don't. I've gone through different phases with the Cassidy gimmick in AEW. I'm an Orange Cassidy fan. When he started out, I loved the character. It was funny, it was different, it was entertaining. My problem with the Cassidy character was that after that, they started pushing him more, which is fine. You're not going to never push the guy. But like they were having him beat Chris Jericho twice. Okay, but then they never really went anywhere with it. He was always the bridesmaid, but never the bride, if that makes sense. Like he would always contend for championships, but never actually win a championship. He was going for the TNT title. He went for the fucking world title one time, the tag titles, the trios titles, all these different championships, and he would never win. But the international championship was the perfect fit for him because it wasn't like a major title, but they gave him the title, and he went on to have an amazing year-long run with all these great matches, and he was the star of the show, extremely over, and the booking worked. Now, I've seen people say, oh, now he should be the one to beat MJF. Like, why are we going from 0 to 100? He's coming off a great run with the international title. That doesn't mean he should be immediately thrust into the world title picture with MJF and Adam Cole and whoever. That would be silly. But I also don't want to see him go back to doing just six-man stuff and tag team stuff and teaming with best friends every week and whatever. At this point, I mean, you can make the argument the international title is more important. I mean, it definitely is more important than the TNT title, even though what they've been doing with the Christian Cage storyline has worked. Him going into the TNT title picture at this point would not be out of the question. I would not mind that. My whole point is that with Orange Cassidy, he will never, in my opinion, and I don't think he should be, with that character, even with how seriously that AEW booked him in the past year, he should never be a world champion. There's a long list of people, I think, in that company that could be a viable world champion over Cassidy. And Cassidy's a better worker than most of them. But just with the character itself, I just don't see him being a world champion. I know that wasn't your question, but I'm just saying as far as the booking of Orange Cassidy, and that relates to your question in the sense that I don't see it. You have to book him properly. Orange Cassidy is a character that you have to tread carefully and lightly with. Because could he be, like, I just don't see him being much more than like a fucking Santino in WWE. And Santino, for a lot of people who don't know, was a really good worker back in the day. But he was never and should have never been a world champion. I know he came close to winning the Rumble one time and winning that Elimination Chamber for the World Heavyweight Championship in 2012. He should have never won a world title. That would have been an absolute joke. Like, I make fun of Jinder Mahal being WWE champion. Santino as WWE champion would have been a stain on the legacy of that championship. Because the guy was a fucking comedy character. Always was and always will be. And he played that role great. But he's never going to get out of that role. I don't think he ever really should get out of that role. He was a multi-time mid-card champion, U.S. champion, IC champion, tag team champion. Never a world champion, and he should have never been a world champion. Orange Cassidy, regardless of the company, should never be a world champion. There's certain people I feel like should never leave their respective company because I feel like if they go to the other company or to another... I mean, I'm talking about WWE and AEW here primarily. That if they go to the other company, I don't see them doing as well. They just don't fit that company. Orange Cassidy, I know WWE is all about sports entertainment. I don't think they would book him properly. You have to book these people properly, specifically a character like his in that gimmick, because it's very polarizing. And people still don't like him, and that's fine. I just feel like in WWE, he has more to offer in AEW as like a mid-card champion than in WWE. In WWE, I feel like they either wouldn't get it, or they wouldn't book him properly, and then they would blame it on the character and not their own booking of him. And they would see, well, this was a waste of money. It was a waste bringing him in. Because certain people only really work... I mean, there's a reason why certain call-ups did not translate well to the main roster, because it only works in that NXT environment. Same thing with WWE to AEW and vice versa. Orange Cassidy is a gimmick I feel like... Could it work if they booked him the same way? Could it work in WWE? Yes. You said, could I see the gimmick as we see it currently work in WWE? Yeah, but the problem is I don't have faith in their booking. Triple H, Vince, doesn't matter. I just don't have enough faith in that promotion. And it took years for Orange Cassidy to get to this point, by the way. I don't have enough faith in WWE's handling or booking of him to make him what he is right now. Because he can't just come in like the way that he is right now. That's the problem. Like, he can't just... If you were to leave AEW tomorrow and then go right to WWE, in AEW currently... He's like a solidified mid-card, upper mid-card guy. He main evented All Out with Jon Moxley and they had a great match. He can't come right into WWE and start doing the upper mid-card stuff because the character's a fucking joke. He built that up over time in AEW with the character and the audience. And there's a lot of people in WWE that would not know who Orange Cassidy is. And you can't just bring him in, expect people to know who he is, and then start at the same level. No, he would have to work his way back up. That's why some people in NXT do not work on the main roster, because they bring them up as is, and some people deserve to be brought up as is. But the problem is that you see their character development in that one promotion, and then when you don't see it on the main roster, you're wondering, well, what's the motivation here? What's the background? And they don't really catch you up, and then they're kind of lost in the shuffle. I fear that would happen with Orange Cassidy. They wouldn't bother to work him up, and they wouldn't have the patience to build him up over a couple of years. It takes time. It's not an instantaneous thing, because, again, the character is so polarizing. And then it just wouldn't work. So, do I see it currently working? In a perfect world, yes. But again, that's provided they put the actual effort into getting it over. I don't see that. So, my answer would be no. I would not want to see him in WWE with the gimmick, or just at all, because I just don't feel like they would get it, or they would book it properly. At that rate, just stay in AEW and continue doing what you're doing. He has a ceiling. I mean, he's never going to, again, be a world champ. I mean, every character, every wrestler has a ceiling. Even some people, if you're world champion 16 times over, it gets old after a while. But with his shelf life is a bit shorter due to the character. And he's already evolved it, and he's gotten more serious and talked more, and that's great. We would have to see that whole evolution all over again in WWE, and I just don't have the confidence they would do it properly. Central Man Network from YouTube, looking forward to the second season of Loki. What were your thoughts on the Secret Invasion show? Did you see the show? I don't know if you were asking me in that first part of the question, because you didn't put a question mark, but you didn't with the second part of the question either. So I don't know if you were saying that you're looking forward to the second season of Loki, or if you're asking me if I'm looking forward to the second season of Loki. If you're asking me, the answer is yes, I am. Loki was definitely the best, and has been the best Marvel Disney Plus show they've done yet. I actually just started rewatching the first season with Alexis yesterday, actually, because it's such a great show. You want to catch up again before the new season comes down. There's only like 6 episodes, so it's not hard to catch up. So I am looking forward to that next Thursday when it drops. Secret Invasion was, when Loki was like the best show they've done, Secret Invasion might be the worst. It started out well enough. I liked the first episode. I liked the second episode. It kind of fell off. People just did not give a fuck. It didn't make sense. It was weird. It wasn't really overly exciting. It tried to be something that it wasn't. A lot of random twists and turns. The finale was just bizarre. I was entertained by it, but it was also like, it left me with more questions than answers, which every Marvel project does. But a lot of the things they did just didn't make sense. It felt like it was an uneven show that they put together at the last minute, where they made a lot of creative decisions. The AI looked weird, or the CGI rather, not the AI, the CGI. They used AI in the intro to create the intro, which a lot of people were upset by, and understandably so, given current circumstances with the strike and whatever. Yeah, it was not a great show. I watch all the Marvel stuff. I will always watch all the Marvel stuff. I'm a Marvel fan. But I will say to people like, oh yeah, like for a casual fan, for example, this is worth watching. This may not be worth watching. Secret Invasion was not worth watching. Do I regret watching it? No, because again, I watch everything Marvel. I consume everything Marvel for the most part, as far as like the Disney Plus stuff and the movies and whatever. So no, I don't regret watching it, but it definitely was not only not a good show, but it was probably the weakest show they've done yet. And I didn't love Miss Marvel. It was a good enough show. It was fine. Secret Invasion was worse, because given, I guess, really what it could have been, Miss Marvel I didn't really have the highest hopes for. It was a nice feel-good kid show, essentially. I wasn't expecting this big thing. Secret Invasion, I've heard so much about the storyline. I don't read the comics, but I've heard so much about it that I was like, oh, this could be great. And I love Nick Fury, and he was the star of that show along with Talos. And they didn't really utilize it to its full, potential, and it just ended up falling flat, so it wasn't really that good of a show. Christopher L. from Facebook's got a pretty hefty question here. First one being, he says, I laughed my ass off when I saw a recent post from the Observer letter that Dominic Mysterio is ranked number 2 in the greatest heels of all time in WWE on a list. I know it doesn't mean much, and it's only a matter of opinion that everyone has a right to, but I just find it ridiculous to believe that people actually believe that Dom is even remotely close to being on the level of someone like a Ted DiBiase or Rick Rude. While he has improved in the ring, and his thing with Rhea Ripley right now is tremendous TV, I don't find him particularly charismatic or even that great of a heel. He's every chicken shit heel the company has ever had, and on top of that, there have been too many embarrassing times that they turned up the volume of the crowd to make it seem like he's getting volcanic heat. He gets great heat, but not heat that would cause a riot like guys like MJF, Flair, Jim Cornette, and many other heels of the past. I like Dom, but I feel like they're overrating his progress. Do you agree? So, the first part of your question, you said that was on a list. I would love to know what that list is. Is it a list in the Observer talking about the best heels in wrestling currently? Because that I would agree with. Dominic is a great heel. The best heel, I'm not sure, but like a great heel, yes, he is. I find him to be a great heel. Did the list, again, was it talking about best heels currently? Was it like a Dave Meltzer list? Was it a fan list? Did it come from a website? Is it best? I mean, actually, I'm sorry. You said of all time in WWE. That's what you wrote here in the question. You said on the greatest heels of all time in WWE. Not currently, but of all time. Yes, that is a very stupid statement. Dominic is certainly not the greatest heel of all time, 1 or 2. I'm not even sure he would be in the top 10. Dominic is great. Dominic has improved a lot. He has come a lot farther than most people thought. Joining Judgment Day was the best thing to happen to him. He's also gotten better in the ring. The Dragon Lee match, for example, on Monday's Raw was excellent. I thought that was great. A lot of that may have had to do with Dragon Lee, but still, Dominic is also not bad. And in his match with Ray, his father at WrestleMania, was also very entertaining. MJF, I think, is a better heel. He's currently a babyface, but MJF's a better heel in general, in my opinion. I know you said you would agree. Are they overrating his progress? WWE, I mean, again, did WWE say that, or it depends on who made the statement. That's definitely overrated to say he's the greatest, one of the greatest heels of all time. And the heat thing you're right about. He gets amazing heat. He really does, more heat than probably anyone in wrestling for the most part. But at the same time, though, they don't pipe in the boos from what I understand. They definitely turn the mic down. I mean, it's fairly obvious if you go to a show or listen to it on TV. They put the mic down a little bit. Again, he gets amazing heat, but they only make it sound louder by doing that. And it's part of the show, it's whatever. That doesn't bother me. But I would not go so far as to say he's the second greatest heel of all time. That is preposterous. His second question, if you could bring back one promotion and be the owner and promoter of the promotion, which one would you pick, ECW or WCW? Probably one of the easiest questions I've ever answered. It has to be WCW. I'm not even that big of a fan of either company. I didn't grow up on ECW or WCW. I came in years later. But it would have to be WCW because I like the old school flavor and formula more than ECW. I've just never been an ECW fan. Unless we're talking like 08, 09 when it was in its deathbed and it had nothing really to do with ECW, only ECW in name only, then maybe. But beyond that, no. I just don't love the hardcore stuff. Going back and watching some of those shows that I've reviewed here on the channel in years past, I just didn't love them. I just don't love, it's not even the chaotic nature, because WCW was chaotic at times, and WWE obviously during the Attitude Era, but it's just like, there's not a lot of great matches, and I'm sure there were great storylines and great characters, and it's all about the environment, right? What I enjoy most about wrestling was not what I like in ECW, if that makes sense. There's a lot of reasons to like ECW, and maybe I would have had a different viewpoint on it if I grew up an ECW fan in the 90s or whatever. I didn't. I was born in 95, so that wouldn't even work. But yeah, I just, I don't know, what they were promoting at that time is not what I like in wrestling. WCW, not everything they did at every point in their existence was my cup of tea. But I would rather run and be the promoter of WCW than ECW. Unless we were running ECW as a completely different promotion, which I don't think was your question, then it would probably have to be WCW. Your third question, AEW has a problem lately selling tickets, and I think part of the reason is because of the constant burnout of shows and locations that they go to all the time, like Chicago. With the announcement of a monthly pay-per-view schedule next year, this could lead to places they rarely go to, and maybe to grow an audience out in that location. My idea is that they could have Revolution next year at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta or the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach, the home of many WCW Bash at the Beaches back in the day. I especially would like to see AEW take a chance and go to Alaska, which could be the first time a wrestling promotion ever flew out to that part of the country. What do you think? I mean, there has been wrestling in Alaska. I've heard of that, like indie shows. A major company? I'm not sure. If WWE has, it wasn't for a major show. Like for a pay-per-view or something, or for like a fucking live television show, definitely not. There has been wrestling out there, just not on that level. Yeah, listen, there's a lot of reasons why ticket sales are down for AEW. That is one of them, though. They go to the same fucking places all the time. I love Chicago. It's an amazing city, my favorite place to visit. But they go there constantly. WWE too, but primarily AEW. They were just there for a string of shows in September for All In, or rather All Out weekend. They were also there for the first Collision back in June. And they're going to be back there for Thanksgiving week for, I don't think Full Gear is there, but they're going back there for the week after Full Gear. Regardless, they go to Chicago a lot. With the other places like Daytona Beach and Atlanta, do they go to Atlanta often? I don't think they do. They've been branching out to new markets as far as like they've been going to different places more often in the last couple of years, which is nice. They're doing a better job of that. I think also a bigger part of the problem is too, they go to bigger arenas when it's not necessary. For like an average Dynamite, sometimes you probably would benefit from running a smaller arena that does not fit 10,000 people. Like they like to go to the WWE arenas, and that's great sometimes. Most of the time, they can't sell those tickets. So it just looks a lot worse in a smaller arena. That's like TNA running a show 10 years ago at friggin' like the XL Center here in Hartford in Connecticut, and they can only do 2,000 people. It just doesn't look good. But if you're doing a smaller arena, which is what they've done in years past, it looks better on TV. And there's no shame in that. You have to work your way up. And there have been certain shows and certain times in the company's existence in the past 4 or 5 years where that would have made sense. And you could do more, sellouts and stuff like that, and they sold more tickets and whatever. But at this current point, it's just they're not doing too well, and they have to go to different markets, like you said, and kind of switch it up a little bit. So yeah, that's definitely an idea. I don't think that's a bad idea. Alaska, I'm not sure how that would do, what the audience there would be like, if they could even do theoretically, or logistically do a show in Alaska as far as a TV taping or flying people out there. I'm not exactly sure. But it's worth a shot. Something that WWE hasn't done. And WWE's running stadiums, and that's great. AEW has their own little niche that they can use smaller arenas to book for their shows, and that's fine. But yeah, going to different markets is certainly part of the problem, and they can use some help in that area in 2024. Noel from Facebook, who should be Jade Cargill's first opponent in NXT when she comes in? I mean, it could be any number one. I mean, I don't know if it'd be necessarily in NXT, by the way. She could go straight to the main roster. I think she would benefit from a stint in NXT, but if they put her on the main roster first, I'm not going to complain, but I do think she would be better off in NXT first. If she went straight to the main roster, it's not the worst thing. But if she goes to NXT first, you can do a couple different things. One, give her the average squash match against friggin' like Danny Palmer or something like that. Two, have her beat a notable name, in her debut, like a Roxanne Perez, and beat her quickly and send a message. Or three, beat another notable name, but a much bigger name in Becky Lynch, either on Raw or on NXT, in like an open challenge-esque scenario, which is what they did with her and Natalya a couple weeks ago. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. They could do that and have Jade beat Becky for the NXT Championship. And you could do it on Raw and then have her go to NXT with the title for a couple months and do that whole thing and then go to the main roster soon after. I think the Becky Lynch thing would be perfect. I don't know if they're going to continue doing the open challenge with her beyond what they did with Natalya, because the Tegan Nox match isn't an open challenge. The Tiffany match obviously isn't an open challenge in No Mercy this weekend. But if they do go back to it and they do it more consistently after she beats those two people coming up on Saturday and next Monday on Raw, then they probably could have Jade debut either on Raw or on NXT and beat Becky for that belt and then go to NXT soon after. That to me might be the ideal way of booking her debut, to send the message from day one that she's a big deal, which they already did yesterday by touting her signing and building her up as a big deal and all this other sort of stuff. They can certainly do that more, going forward as far as how to capitalize off the buzz around her signing. Well, you could do that by having her beat Becky Lynch on day one for the NXT Women's Championship. Their second question, do you think turning heel will help or hurt Drew McIntyre depending on how they book him? I think it'll help him. I know his big reservation was, understandably so, that if he was going to turn heel, and this was the rumor and report months ago, and he kind of backed it up in interviews, so it was true, that if he was going to go heel or do a character change, it would have to make sense. There is something to be said for the whole shock value of it, of him turning heel out of nowhere, and that's great. That can make for a great moment. But it's not often they do what they're doing right now, or they do this slow burn heel turn, and you see every little layer of the character and why he's doing what he's doing. If he were to go heel now or in the next couple of weeks officially, it would make sense based on what we've seen him endure, not only really in the last couple of weeks, but what we've seen go on with him since Clash of the Castle last year. It's been a slow descent for Drew McIntyre, from failing to win the World Championship, failing to win the Intercontinental Championship twice, going away, coming back, the Jey Uso stuff, and Cody's the White Knight, and he's trying to be more the Batman to his Superman. It's really deep, cool storytelling, and I've enjoyed it a lot. So Drew, he's very over. He's established. He could continue to coast to that level, but I think the heel turn makes him more interesting. And he also has not been a heel in like 4 years. It's been a long time since he was last a heel in WWE. He's an amazing babyface. It's probably the right role for him overall, but he's been a babyface for so long now, and he's done everything in that role, including being a world champion, that going back to being a heel now is not a bad idea whatsoever. And I think he could work in that role. It freshens things up. I don't think he leaves the company. I do think he re-signs in 2024. But this would give him kind of elongate his shelf life and freshen up his character and give him something new to do, give him new opponents to work with, like Cody, like Seth, who he's worked with before, but not for any real lengthy program with him as the heel and Seth as the babyface, that's for sure. So, or that's not necessarily true. They had a couple matches in early 2019. First of all, that was almost 5 years ago. Second of all, that wasn't for a program. But anyway, yeah, I think it'll definitely help him long term, and I'm curious to see how it plays out and how they finally pull the trigger when the time comes. At Iwagu91, their first question was, your thoughts on Dominic Mysterio versus Dragon Lee this past Monday on Raw? I thought it was a great match, definitely the best match on the show, and it was a really good show. I thought it was a pretty solid, enjoyable show overall. They had the best part of the show, though. And it's interesting because I did not think their first match was great. I thought they had a fine TV match, if not slightly underwhelming for the North American Championship about a month ago. This was much better. Dragon Lee's had some fun matches in NXT, but they have not booked him as a priority at all. Like, he's been on the show, but he's lost a lot. He's lost a lot of matches. And including to JD McDonough before JD McDonough left NXT, which was weird because JD was leaving anyway, so I'm not really sure why he would fucking win. And it's not like he really did anything on Raw when he first got called up. But anyway, Dragon Lee is great, and he really shined more in that match. And Dominic, to his credit, also had a really strong showing, but Dragon Lee is awesome. Dragon Lee has been awesome in the times that I've seen him in New Japan, AEW, Ring of Honor, everywhere I've seen him work, he's always shined. So I'm glad he's finally getting that spotlight. He's awesome. And, hopefully we get that match at some point. I know Dragon Lee's going to be the special guest ref for Dominic versus Trick Williams on No Mercy coming up this weekend. I don't think Trick wins the belt. I don't think he needs to win the belt. I don't think he should win the belt. But hopefully this leads to Dominic and Dragon 3 at some point, and Dragon takes the championship from Dominic, either on NXT or on Raw or a pay-per-view or whatever. His second question, your thoughts on Chase U. Interesting question because they've never really been the biggest Chase U fan, but they have grown on me. It's a much better group now than it was a year and a half ago. It was a fucking goof troop and it was stupid. That was back at like the peak of NXT 2.0 with all the dumb gimmicks and characters and factions. It's a lot better now. They've built up a great, rapport with the audience. Adding Andre Chase was a great benefit. Thea Hale's really emerged as a great babyface now, kind of like a tweener, which is interesting. I like that whole character evolution. They've had a great story. Andre's also just a good worker in general, so that helps. So yeah, Chase U's not my favorite thing in the world, but they've gotten over a lot in front of that audience. Now, does it work in the main roster is the question. NXT is one thing. I talked about this earlier. NXT is one thing. The main roster is another. I don't know. But I think they're a good group, and they're a fun part of NXT, and they have been for a while now. Their third question, if Drew McIntyre is going to turn heel, would you consider it similar to Chris Jericho's acclaimed heel turn in 2008, where he has a point about a babyface actions, but is still seen as a heel in spite of that? Yeah, I mean, Jericho is a heel because he has a point, and he's not wrong, like Drew, but it's how he conducts himself. Like a baby, or like someone that was right in their ways. Like Jericho's logic made sense, but it was how he conducted himself and how he acted. Like, he went ahead and beat the shit out of Shawn Michaels for no reason. Like, who does that? That wasn't justified, but his reason for being frustrated in the first place was justified. And Drew's kind of in that same boat. It's very similar to that. That was 15 years ago. So, yeah, I don't know if anything will ever beat that Jericho heel run, because he was doing that for a while. And the Drew thing's also been going on for a while, to be fair. That Jericho, I mean, he was just on another level. And the thing with Jericho is that before he turned heel, he was stagnant. Drew, you can make the argument he's stagnant as a character. Jericho was in a different place. He was just doing all the old hits, and he was in a different point in his career. Although I think they're roughly around the same age. Where Jericho was in 08, I think is how old Drew is now, which is funny. But Drew didn't leave the company. Point being, Jericho was just the best thing going in the company. At that point, they put the world title on him. Same thing could happen to Drew. I mean, Drew could turn heel and it would be this amazing transformation. He's already been entertaining. This will just continue to keep him entertaining. I don't know if it'll be this massive transformation like Jericho, where Jericho was like, like who cares, and then turns heel and it's like, wow, like this guy wearing the suit's a complete character 180. I don't know if Drew's going to do that necessarily. I don't think he needs to, because a lot of people wear suits nowadays. It's kind of been done to death since the Jericho days in 08. And people were doing it before then, but specifically Jericho. But it is similar in terms of the execution, and I like that a lot. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine and on YouTube, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Check out his content. Does great work. His first question was, with WrestleDream just a few days away, how do you think the card looks? Also, do you think the slow ticket sales, 5,500, with just a few days to go, is due to them running Collision in the same building the night before or something else? No, I don't think it's a Collision issue. I mean, that doesn't help. I wouldn't think doing Collision in the same arena the night before. But listen, if it's a hot product, people will go to both. WWE runs the same building multiple nights in a row for other pay-per-views and, Mania and other pay-per-views, and it's not an issue. If it's a hot show or if it's a hot product, I would say, then that shouldn't be a problem. But it's cool they're going to Seattle. We've talked about this before because I know you're from the area, John. It's cool that they're going back there. They're doing a pay-per-view there for the first time. The build of the pay-per-view has not been anything spectacular. They actually did a better job. It's funny. They've done a better job of putting together that card than WWE has so far with Fastlane. And it's usually the other way around. WWE starts announcing things weeks in advance. We almost only have 2 matches announced for Fastlane coming up on next weekend. Not this weekend, but next weekend. And one of those matches isn't even complete because LA Knight has not been added yet to the Cena Bloodline match, seemingly. So anyway, I think it's a great card on paper. I really do. I'm looking forward to that pay-per-view on Sunday. It should be a great weekend of wrestling between WrestleDream and No Mercy on Saturday. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just the AEW issues we were talking about earlier. Not so much a market thing, because like we said, they're not in Seattle often, so it's not like it's a Chicago show, and that's why tickets are low. 5,500 isn't terrible. You would think it'd be higher for a pay-per-view, though. I mean, ticket sales were also low, and this is the power of promotion. Ticket sales were also really low for Grand Slam, far down from what they were last year, and especially 2 years ago. But then they put MJF and Jericho, Statlander, a few other people doing media in the days before, and they sold thousands of tickets right before the show. Like, is it a promotion thing where they're not doing enough local promotion to promote these shows? I feel like that's also part of the problem because it's not an established brand. AEW's been around now for almost 5 years, but they're not, like, a lot of people will not know what AEW is. They might see the promotion through TNT, but not everyone watches TNT or TNT-related programming and TBS and whatever. They need more promotion. Local promotion. Now, I think that's a big factor. Honestly, after seeing the success of Grand Slam in terms of attendance and how big of a difference that made, I would not have made that guess even 2 weeks ago, that Grand Slam would end up doing as many people as it did in terms of the attendance, just by media. I mean, that makes a big difference. I don't know how much of that they typically do. And Seattle's not New York City, obviously. It's a bit different. But they could probably benefit from having Danielson go around. I mean, has Danielson really even done anything? Like, he could be going around doing the media rounds. He's from the area. Oh, 1 year left in my full-time run. This is a part of the tour. Come see me. I mean, still, I know him and Zack Sabre Jr. is not a media mainstream match. That's more of a wrestling dreams match, a wrestling fan dream match. But still, I feel like they could have him out there and other people. Darby Allin doing more media. Maybe they have been, but it's Wednesday. The show's on Sunday. I haven't seen shit. I saw a lot more promotion. I'm from the Northeast, so again, I saw a lot more of the media stuff for Grand Slam than I have so far for WrestleDream. I feel like that's a big factor. I really do. And also, in addition to the fact that, like you said, or like I said earlier, the product just isn't overly hot. They've got some good stuff going on, but they also just have too many fucking shows. Like, this is a company that was doing 4 pay-per-views a year at one point, and already people, I mean, for example, it does affect the live attendance. When you have too many shows and they're all $50 each, $50, $60, that makes a difference. Because you can have someone, and honestly, watching on TV sometimes is better than going. I've kind of come to realize that in the last couple of years, getting older and stuff. I just don't want to travel as much. But some of these shows are better in retrospect when, or not in retrospect, but when you watch them from the comfort of your couch as opposed to going. So when you think of people that live in Seattle, and I'm sure, John, obviously I forgot if you're going or not, but you probably posed this question yourself, and I know you've tweeted me and talked about this, like, do I go, do I not go, is it even a question, like, I'm just going to stay home? Because here's the thing, the money that you spent on watching All In, All Out, buying these other shows, that might be money that you put towards tickets. And not only do you not, I mean, yeah, tickets, you can watch it on, again, would you not watch the show? Again, on Bleacher Report for $50, you could probably go for less, but then again, you're also adding gas and parking and the ticket itself and fees. Going is probably more expensive than just sitting home and watching it from the comfort of your couch and paying however much it is on Bleacher Report. If you go, unless you get a really cheap ticket, especially for a pay-per-view, it will probably end up being more than what the price is of watching at home. Yeah, you're watching it in person and it's great, but you're also paying for like food and all this other sort of stuff. And again, it's not, I've said this before and I don't want to make the economy excuse, but you're expecting people to pay a lot more money than what they were paying a year ago. If you're just watching the shows on Bleacher Report a couple times a year, and then you have enough money come around for the show that's coming to your area, for just anyone in general, I'm not talking about John specifically, then that's fine. But if these people are paying $50 for All In, $50 for All Out, and then $100+ for tickets, and it might be you and someone else, then that's a lot of money, and people just may not want to do that. So that's another thing, too. It might be a show where it's like, it looks great on paper. I could also enjoy this from home. I don't have to be there. It's not a must-see show. It looks like a really fun show. The AEW shows are always entertaining. Are they like must-see television or must-see pay-per-views? Typically, No, they're very fun shows, and I would recommend them, but it's not like you're missing out by not going. That's the key. They have to kind of change that narrative and work on that a little more. Or just put them on HBO Max, which a lot of people already have anyway, and you're not spending $50, and then people might be more inclined to go to your show. Because it's like, all right, I'm not spending the $100 on pay-per-views this month, so I'll end up going to the pay-per-view and spend that money there. That's also, I think, a factor as well. His second question, so how long until Jade wins one of the women's championships in WWE? I'm going Mania 40 at the latest. No, I think it'll be later. If you're talking any women's title, like I said, I could certainly 1,000% see her winning the NXT Women's Championship in the next couple of months, if not sooner. Not at Mania or after Mania. I feel like she'd be champion before then. The Raw or the SmackDown Women's World Championship or the WWE Women's Championship, yeah, I don't see her winning those personally. I feel like that would be too soon. You don't want to rush her. But the NXT Women's Championship, definitely. I feel like that could be a slam dunk. If that counts as part of your question, then definitely. The third question of his, as a Star Wars fan, are you going to see the creator since it's from the same director as Rogue One? I didn't even know that film existed until you brought it up. I looked it up. It sounds like it has to do with AI or something. I will probably not see it. I mean, unless I hear these great reviews, I will listen to your review, John. Obviously, I'll check out your review, and everyone else should as well. Check out his content. Like I said earlier, does great work. I probably will not see it. I will probably not be seeing a movie, and for no particular reason other than there's no movies that really interest me right now coming out or are out currently until, funnily enough, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie comes out because Alexis is a big fan, and I think it looks cool. I like that company that does those movies. And you can watch it on Peacock for free, but seeing it in theaters is just a different experience. So I'll probably be holding out till that one next month. And that's not for another month. I will probably, and that's actually a month from today, I think. The creator I'll probably have to pass on, but if it's a great movie, then I will go check it out. Because Rogue One was also a great movie people should watch as well. Noob_N_Co TV. Last two questions from them. First one being, what are your thoughts on the match between Asuka and Io Sky from SmackDown last week? He says, I found it great. It got everyone talking about it, but I didn't like the finish. However, it seems that there's going to be a storyline because Io got help from Bayley, so I see a rematch, but on a bigger stage. Yeah, Charlotte was also there too, so that's part of the fucking problem. I would love to see Io and Asuka on a bigger stage. If they just run it back at the next show, then I'm not really sure why they did it on SmackDown to begin with. That's kind of stupid. I think they did it on SmackDown because either at Fastlane or whatever show, they're going to add Charlotte. And it's going to be Io, Asuka, Bayley maybe, and definitely. Charlotte just can't fucking stay away from the title. She can never stay away from the championship for more than like a month. The Bianca thing would have kept her busy outside of the title picture. Bianca's gone for right now. And even when Bianca comes back, she also might be thrown back into the title picture. So, I love that. First of all, I wouldn't get my hopes up for Io and Asuka running it back on a pay-per-view anytime soon. But it was a great match. It was definitely a great television match and one of the better TV matches I've seen in recent memory. They got a lot of time and they made the most of it. Second question from @noob_N_Co TV was, your thoughts on some of the WWE releases with the exception of Matt Riddle. The most surprising is Dolph Ziggler. The release that caught me off guard is Mustafa Ali because he had a title match and that got thrown out of the window and others are just WTF. Aside from, I already talked about the releases earlier, but the most surprising was Dolph because I didn't say this earlier, but I figured he was a lifer there. I figured he would end his career in that company in whatever role they needed him to do. Like Miz, who may not be a lifer after seeing the Ziggler news, but Miz is on TV a lot more than Ziggler has been lately. And Ziggler was not in the company for much more than Miz was. Miz debuted on the main roster in 2006. I mean, he's actually been on the show more than Dolph Ziggler has been, funnily enough. Ziggler has signed with the company earlier, but I think Miz has been on TV more, interestingly. But anyway, I did not think they would let go of Ziggler. The Ali one was just dumb because, I mean, it is stupid they let him go because he has done great work lately in NXT, but the people that sign their checks, they see him getting paid main roster money on the fucking developmental show. They don't give a shit. They don't care what he's doing right now. They don't care if he has a title match coming up next weekend. They don't care. So, they let him go. They have so many talented people. He'll be fine wherever he goes. I hate when they let people go without letting their contracts expire. That's one thing. When these people sign deals and then they leave or they get fired before it's up, I think that's stupid. WWE always does that. It just doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. then don't sign them to 5-year deals. That's the whole thing. But anyway, I appreciate that Tony Khan usually lets people's contracts expire and then let them go if you have no plans for them. The other ones aren't really that surprising. Dana Brooke, I know she was doing stuff in NXT as well. Dana Brooke has never been good. I'm not saying I don't feel bad for these people losing their spot on the roster and losing their jobs, obviously. I will not advocate for that. I will never advocate for that. But at the same time, there's so many women that are so much better than her, and she's a great ambassador. She did a lot of the Special Olympic stuff with WWE, and she was great at that stuff. In the ring, she was not great at all. She's improved a little bit. Dana Brooke has been a lost cause for fucking years. The fact she was there for a decade is amazing to me. When women not nearly as talented as her were there for a lot less. Emma was a bummer because she just came back a year ago, and they've already let her go. That's their fault. That's not an Emma thing, I don't think. Top Dollar, the Hit Row thing just didn't work, but then you at least have a tag team with them. The Hit Row thing didn't work. Maybe they thought they were just paying him too much money? Was he getting paid more than Ashanti the Adonis and B-Fab? Like, why weren't they let go? I'm glad they weren't, but it's like, what are they going to do with them? That's the question. Are they going to have B-Fab manage Ashanti on his own? Like, B-Fab's not getting in the ring. She sucks. In the ring, she's not good. So, I just don't know. Elias, like, again, he's done all that he can do. People, oh, he's underutilized. Dude, he was on the fucking show almost every week for 6 or 7 years. Give me a break. He well exceeded expectations. He had a good run. Elias was never going to be more than a certain character on the show, like Orange Cassidy. He's another one. I can't see him going to AEW and, like... And he's also... Orange Cassidy's just a better worker than Elias. Elias I enjoy a lot, but he was never going to get beyond a certain level. That's just a fact. You have him. Who else was even released? Rick Boogs. Again, that's missed potential. They could have done more with him. And again, he wasn't going to be a world champion, so I'm not that upset. A lot of these people were very expendable. Aaliyah was never good either. Aaliyah was also there for like a fucking decade, and she sucked. I'm surprised she was not let go sooner. Again, I feel bad for these people losing their jobs, but I'm just saying. Most of these people, unlike a couple of years ago, were people they had no plans for, were never going to have plans for, were never on the show, and also, in some cases, were just not that good. And they have other people in the pipeline they're building up. They already have a full roster. They don't really need them. The timing was shitty because they announced this $1 billion deal and they let go of these people to, save money? That's kind of shitty. But you're also, at that point, that's what I'm saying. The fact that they're gone isn't that disappointing to me, but it's when they release these people before their deals are up. When they let deals expire and they don't renew them like Lacey Evans, that to me is fine. Like, who cares? Like, that makes sense, because if you're not going to use them like Tony Khan, then get rid of them. But don't get rid of them in the middle of a deal. That, to me, is pretty shitty. And they've always done that. That'll never change. But that's it. That's it for #AskGSM here today. Episode, what did I say? 513, I think? Yeah, episode 513 already. That's crazy. I feel like we just did 500 yesterday, but that was like 3 months ago. Wild. But anyway, if you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not in the wall itself, and certainly not least, check me out on here on YouTube. Drop a comment down below in the comment section, and I'll include your question in next week's edition. Like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have an awesome one, folks. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.